Hello, my name is B.Certa. I am an occupational therapy doctoral student at Rush University. Today I will be talking about my capstone project titled Applying the Intentional Relationship Model to Facilitate Meaningful Engagement in Individuals with Dementia. So my site was at Sunrise Senior Living. It's a national organization that has a variety of locations in the Chicagoland area and throughout the U.S. Many Sunrise units include assisted living, independent living, memory care, personal care, skilled nursing, and rehabilitation services. I also worked with a therapy company paired with Sunrise called Health Pro Heritage. Sunrise offers a variety of activity programs as well for their residents, including exercise, fine arts, music, community service, and many more. My project came about from a conversation I had with the memory care director, who told me that many units at Sunrise have residents with various levels of dementia or memory impairments, and the majority of the staff at the facility are not formally trained in the stages and progression of dementia, which therefore limits the participation of residents with memory and cognitive impairments in activities offered at the facility. So some background. Before I began at Sunrise, I had the idea of creating a training module that included activity adaptation and environmental modifications with an OT lens, with the goal of increasing client-centered occupational engagement for individuals with dementia at long-term living facilities. However, once I got to the facility, I began to shift my focus a little bit based on observations and research from the unit. Research results showed a gap in communication strategies rather than in activity modification. Older adults with dementia experience a variety of communication limitations that we'll go into in a little bit, but residents tend to spend about half of their time unengaged in occupations, despite their efforts to socialize and their abilities to participate in various activities with assistance. So these findings demonstrated to me the increased need for evidence-based communication strategies for clients with dementia. And then I ended up creating an educational training module that included the foundation of cognition in dementia, the basic needs of someone with dementia, successful communication strategies that staff can use, and something familiar to Sunrise, invite, encourage, and assist, as well as person-centered care strategies. So my experience objectives included just expanding my knowledge of dementia, the dementia levels, and applying them to the facility. So my first objective had a sub-objective of creating a summary of those best practices, creating a dementia care training program for staff members, which I completed, called Endless Engagement. I created individual resident profiles to help staff use more client-centered activities. And the last one was to create a list of available activities in the memory unit for different levels of dementia. I was fortunate enough to create a sensory room with funding from Sunrise in the memory unit, so I created a presentation on the importance of multisensory environments for the staff in dementia care. Objective 2 was to complete dementia knowledge education training. I did this with my partner company, Health Pro Heritage. They have their own training for adults with dementia and how to work with them, titled Ageless Abilities. I also took some training courses on my own titled Ability-Based Approaches to Treat People with Dementia, the Purpose of Multisensory Environments, and How to Foster Meaningful Engagement for Individuals in Long-Term Care. Objective 3 was to increase my working knowledge of adult learning theory. I did this by implementing the principles of adult learning theory into my staff training module. And the last one was to gain leadership skills through meeting with the memory care director at the facility, and I created a list of qualities and responsibilities of being a director at a national organization. After some unexpected events, I was unable to complete my in-person presentation of the training program I created, Endless Engagement. Therefore, I wasn't able to obtain any pre- and post-data results on the presentation. So I had to shift my focus. So I pulled out some themes from the Endless Engagement presentation, which ended up being that communication difficulties are very prominent in people with dementia. There was a huge focus on interpersonal communication with working with this population, and there was strong recommendations for empathy and validation as best practice for people with dementia, which is how I came to my current title and project, applying the IRM to facilitate engagement for adults with dementia using an empathetic approach. So my problem statement. Clients with Alzheimer's disease and related dementias experience significant language and communication impairments, making it difficult to express wants, needs, and interests. These impairments often manifest as challenging behaviors in therapy and may be indicative of a discrepancy between the client's needs, the therapist's interpersonal approach, and the demands of the environment. Communication difficulties for people with dementia require an increased need for skilled caregiver training in order to facilitate empathic interactions with the client. This gap in services is explored through the social-emotional needs of an individual with progressive dementia, evidence-based communication strategies, and ways in which the IRM can be used to theoretically ground these concepts in order to decrease the frequency of distressing behaviors, improve the therapeutic relationship, and in turn maximize engagement and therapeutic outcomes. So the theory I worked within for my project was the Intentional Relationship Model, IRM for short. It was created for practitioners, specifically OTs, as a framework for how to guide therapeutic interactions. The IRM uses 6 different modes to effectively develop the therapeutic relationship, including advocating, empathizing, instructing, problem-solving, encouraging, and collaborating. There are 4 central elements to the IRM. The first one includes the client and their interpersonal characteristics. So these are just characteristics that are specific to that individual client. There are 2 types, enduring and situational. Enduring characteristics are the behaviors you see in your client day to day that are pretty regular. Situational characteristics usually happen during a stressful event where the client may act in a non-typical behavior than you usually see. The second element is the therapist. So the therapist, according to the IRM, brings their knowledge and interpersonal skills from their previous experience. They bring the ability to use therapeutic modes and to mode shift between each therapeutic mode. And lastly, they bring interpersonal reasoning, which involves how to navigate an interpersonal event. The IRM states that interpersonal events are naturally occurring events in therapy. They're inevitable, and we need to be prepared on how to deal with them. And lastly, the occupation, which depends on the client's interests and goals. So for my literature review, I found that 1 in 10 adults ages 65 and older have dementia, according to the Alzheimer's Association. There are approximately 6 million older adults with dementia, ages 65 and older, and this number is expected to rise to 14 million by 2050. This will create an increased need for occupational therapists trained in dementia care as the population of older adults with dementia continues to grow. As dementia advances, these individuals will experience communication challenges with speech production, naming objects, and verbalizing their thoughts. Progressive communication deficits in dementia create significant barriers to engagement in meaningful occupations, which can lead to an increase in neuropsychiatric symptoms, which is defined as non-cognitive symptoms, including agitation, depression, apathy, and psychosis. These neuropsychiatric symptoms negatively impact the quality of life for persons with dementia, and it affects up to 90% of individuals that have dementia. Symptoms typically result from neurodegeneration, social and environmental factors. Results suggest that using an empathic approach to communication with individuals diagnosed with dementia can increase positive therapeutic outcomes. Most occupational therapists agree that the therapeutic relationship is the most important skill of clinical reasoning. However, practitioners feel they are inadequately trained in this area. The IRM is a conceptual model that practitioners can use to close the communication gap for older adults with dementia by focusing on empathic understanding, which will lead to better therapeutic outcomes with the client. For my research project, I used the theoretical foundation of the intentional relationship model and applied it to a case study to demonstrate the importance of the therapeutic relationship with clients that have dementia by bridging the gap in their communication barriers. My project aims include illustrating interpersonal characteristics and interpersonal events for clients with dementia according to the IRM. My case study demonstrates the appropriate mode shift to prevent empathic breaks in the therapeutic relationship and increases occupational engagement for individuals with progressive dementia. And lastly, the case study will explain the importance of the empathizing mode in order to maximize client-centered communication strategies for individuals with progressive dementia. The design of my study turned into an observational study, and it was conducted in order to examine how the IRM can be applied in dementia care settings in order to understand the therapist and client relationship, as well as explain the effectiveness of IRM strategies in order to promote a better relationship with residents in this setting. Procedures include an in-depth literature review on the intentional relationship model and associated literature. This was conducted to ground evidence-based strategies regarding effective communication for the dementia population. The case study was developed and informed by informal observations and informal interviews that were conducted with residents and employees in the dementia unit of a long-term living facility. Data analysis included field notes from informal observations and informal interviews that were examined based on the IRM framework in order to inform the case study. It presented the application of the intentional relationship model in order to demonstrate interpersonal characteristics, interpersonal events, flexible mode shifts, and the importance of empathic understanding to prevent empathic breaks and strengthen the therapeutic relationship with clients that have dementia. Data for this case study was collected as part of an occupational therapy doctoral capstone. The case study applies the 6 steps of the interpersonal reasoning process created by the IRM, including anticipate, identify and cope, determine if a mode shift is required, choose the response mode, draw upon interpersonal skills, and gather feedback. I applied the interpersonal reasoning process to a case study. Lynn. Information has been de-identified. She was an 83-year-old woman with moderately advanced dementia. A few months ago, when I met her, she became a resident in a memory unit. Lynn grew up on a farm with her family. She enjoyed participating in occupations at the facility, including Bible study, helping set the table, group exercise. Lynn initially began to demonstrate distressful behaviors after her move into the memory unit. This continued on for a few weeks to months after her move into the memory unit. During Lynn's case study, I go over her interpersonal characteristics, interpersonal events that she experienced during mealtime, applied the interpersonal reasoning process to the interpersonal event, and as a result, we resolved the event and the empathic break, we were able to refocus on her occupation of having lunch at that time, and as a result, we were able to strengthen the therapeutic relationship between me and this resident. Because of their communication limitations, entering a therapy session with a client with dementia in empathizing mode allows us to enter their world, get an idea of what they're feeling, of what they understand that's going on around them, and then it gives the therapist the ability to shift modes appropriately depending on what's going on in that treatment session, or it could be an interpersonal event. It allows the therapist time to get an understanding of where the client's at, mode shift appropriately to maybe collaborating, encouraging, or problem-solving mode, and then ending the session or interpersonal event back with empathizing mode to get a better understanding of how the client's feeling, whether they have any unresolved issues that they need to discuss, and just ensure the relationship is still doing well. The case study provided evidence to support the use of empathy in dementia care. Occupational therapists can use the IRM to guide their clinical reasoning and create successful therapeutic relationships with clients with dementia. The case study demonstrated how to use the intentional reasoning process and shift from an activity focus to an interpersonal focus in order to support the client-therapist relationship. The case study supported mode flexibility that allows the therapist to choose which mode is most appropriate throughout the treatment session and during an interpersonal event. It also illustrated how the therapist can use empathic understanding to resolve empathic breaks and interpersonal events. And lastly, the case study incorporated these strategies into interpersonal communication with clients that will support and strengthen therapeutic outcomes and a decrease in negative behaviors. So while there has been limited research on the use of the IRM concepts in practice, none of them have focused primarily on the use of empathic understanding in order to bridge the communication gap of older adults with dementia, using a case study of the interpersonal reasoning process. As a profession, we can benefit from learning how to redirect some of our efforts from the activity to the interpersonal connection to all clients, not just dementia care. These techniques would not only benefit the occupational therapy profession, but occupational therapists can educate caregivers, family members, staff at senior living facilities, and other healthcare professionals in order to provide the best quality of care for our clients. Personally learned lessons for me include the importance of interpersonal communication with clients and how doing this can strengthen the therapeutic relationship and result in positive therapeutic outcomes. It's not always about the occupation, it truly is about the client, the occupation, and the environment. I learned that theory can be a helpful tool to guide treatment. I feel very well versed in the intentional relationship model, and I can see myself using it in future practice as I go on. I've learned that anything can be accomplished with interprofessional collaboration and a great team. I think everybody here can agree that we've all experienced some unexpected events, but nevertheless, we're all here, and I couldn't have done this without the help from everyone that I received. Lastly, I've learned that clients are so much more than their disease, especially those with communication difficulties. Quality dementia care does not exist without empathy. Individuals with dementia are still people with feelings, wants, and needs. Therapists must enter their world in order to truly understand them as unique individuals. Only then can we begin to create successful and trusting therapeutic relationships with our clients. I'd like to thank my partner, my family, for their endless support throughout this entire doctoral project and experience. I could not have done it without them. Additional thanks to Rush University and the Occupational Therapy Department and faculty for all the hard work they've done to create this program. Thank you to Sunrise Senior Living for trusting me as their first student. Thank you to my site mentor, Justin Williams, for taking me on and teaching me so much. And lastly, thank you to Dr. Jenny Popova for your guidance and support during the creation of this manuscript. I hope you enjoyed it.